So here we go. Nailing your messaging so visitors get it immediately. Once again, thank you, Team Wired Impact, for having me. As David said, I'm Jordana Merkin, founder and CEO of Voice for Good. And I'm so excited to discuss how to nail your messaging so website visitors get it immediately. Clear messaging is at the heart of all of my work with nonprofits, and I hope after our time together today, you'll walk away with some actionable tips and insights into how to make clear messaging work for your organization and your website. So, a bit about me. As David mentioned, I've worked in and around nonprofits my entire career, first in house for a decade, wearing all of the nonprofit marketing and communications hats at a few different organizations. And for the past 4 years, I've shifted gears to working with organizations as a messaging and communications consultant. In college, I was an English major and pursued creative writing and sociology minors. And for me, the center of that Venn diagram was really making mass communication individual and personal in a way that drives connection and action. So I started with some for-profit internships in college in advertising and copywriting, and quickly realized that I loved the work, but I needed to be marketing a mission, and I haven't turned back. Through Voice for Good, I equip growing nonprofits with the tools and knowledge they need to clarify their messaging, to connect with those who matter most to their cause, so they can successfully raise awareness and funds for their missions. Clear messaging is at the heart of it all. Through my work, I have learned that amplifying an empty or unclear message won't get you anywhere, even with the best marketing or fundraising plan or the best website. And that's what we're going to focus on today. I grew up in northern New Jersey, right outside New York City, where I lived for many years. And now I'm back in New Jersey again with my husband and 3 kids. So special shout out to anyone from around here. But in our virtual world, I'm proud to have worked with organizations from all over the country. So I know I've mentioned clear messaging about 5 times in 2 slides already. So let us get clear on what that means. When I work on clear messaging with an organization, we focus on the words and phrases they use to tell their stories to attract the right people. That's how they convey their values in their own voice. It's how they share their stories and how they stand out to their people. I recently worked with someone who told me that words don't matter. He meant that if you're not backing them up with action, then they're not worth anything. And that's true. But how are you going to convey what actions are meaningful to you at your nonprofit? How are you going to demonstrate your values in your communications? How are you going to share the actions you're taking toward advancing your mission? If you ask me, words matter a whole lot. Without the right words, there's no message. And without a clear message, there's no foundation for awareness raising. And without awareness raising, there's no pipeline for fundraising. And without fundraising, I'm not sure we really want to go there, do we? Clear messaging is the bedrock of just about everything else for your organization. So clear messaging has many pieces, but it all comes down to this. What do you do? What do you want to be known for? Who cares about it? And why should they care about it? If you can answer these 4 questions clearly, consistently, and cohesively on behalf of your organization, and if your entire team, no matter the size of your team, can do the same, you'll be on your way to harnessing the power of clear messaging to connecting with the right people for you. So now that we're clear on what it is, why does it matter now more than ever? Maybe you've heard that humans have a shorter attention span than a goldfish, but that's not entirely true, because if you think about it, our attention spans are actually quite long when something captures our attention. If you think about binge watching or how much time we spend on social media, we actually spend a good amount of time, for better or for worse, on things that interest us. The difference now is that in our fast-paced world, we have seconds to hook someone or they'll move on. What is this about? Why should I care? Those are the questions you need to be thinking about in terms of your messaging and your audience. It's true for Netflix and it's true for you. We have so much thrown at us from all directions every day, and having clear and consistent messaging on your website and really across all of your communications is not only how you'll stand out from the noise in a memorable way, but also signal to the right people that you are for them. And I want to focus on that for a minute, because just as important as the clarity of your message is who is hearing it and how it is driving connection. In our fast-paced digital world, I get this question a lot. How do we reach new people? But the question is not really how do we reach new people? It's how do we reach the right people? Reaching the right people includes attracting, maintaining, and building relationships with your people, the right people for you. It's not just about the messages that you want to share. Your website is not actually just about you. It's about how they're going to land with those who need to hear them. And it all begins with a clear message, which is the bedrock of that connection, because clarity creates connection. So, as we said, the foundation to clear messaging starts with this question: what do you do? If there isn't a clear and cohesive answer to what do you do for your organization, you're going to lose people. That's true in person and digitally, like when someone lands on your website. And again, we have just seconds to get this right. People won't engage with what they can't understand. They'll move on. There are too many other things being thrown in their direction. So sometimes if you ask, what do you do of 3 people at the same organization, even if there are only 3 people at that organization, you might get 3 different answers. And it's not that anyone is wrong or misinformed, but often we work in silos. And while there is a time and a place, of course, to answer about the work you do as an individual, more often being asked that question is an opportunity to share the impact of the organization as a whole, to tell that story. And that's an opportunity you don't want to miss. It's crucial to make sure that everyone on the team is equipped with an answer to this question so they can effectively spread the word about your organization and attract the right people in the process. This includes your board members and volunteers, who are really your ambassadors when speaking or writing about your organization. If the messaging on your website is inconsistent with what's being put out in the world from staff members, board members, or volunteers, you're going to lose people that way too. So having a clear and consistent answer to what do you do is really the first step in having visitors get it when they land on your site. Because when everyone is aligned with the answer to that question, your speech bubbles end up looking like this. You end up telling one clear story that demonstrates your impact with a cohesive message. And the more cohesive your message, the better the right people understand that you're signaling to them. The more you'll use the resources you have to amplify that message, and the more impact your marketing efforts will have. This, of course, includes your website, which is often the first place people land to learn more about you. So when someone asks, what do you do? It's an opportunity, as we said, to answer with your why. It's the underlying reason for why your work matters, and it's how you engage your people with the emotional core of your impact. So when someone asks, what do you do? Your big picture story is really the answer. It's a powerful elevator pitch that ties together your mission, impact, and values with an emotional connection ribbon. I have a big picture story workbook that relates to the exercise we're about to go through together that will link up at the end of the presentation. So you can download it on your own to go through it. So stay tuned for that. So here's how you get to your big picture story. You start with that fundamental question of what do you do? And you peel back the layers of that onion by asking, why is that important at least 3 times to get to the emotional core? So I'll give you an example of a preschool that serves children with special needs. So let's start with that. What do you do? We teach children with developmental challenges. And why is that important? Because these children often can't be educated anywhere else and need somewhere to go to school. And why is that important? Because they need to have their needs met and learn at their own level. And why is that important? So they can reach their potential with a strong foundation for future success, which every child deserves. That third answer is how you push yourself toward your big picture story. It should be rooted in your mission and your values and speak to the emotional core of your impact. In this example, they educate children with developmental differences so they can reach their potential with a strong foundation for future success, which every child deserves. Now that is a clear big picture story that ties together mission, impact, and values and connects to the right people on an emotional level. Here's the breakdown of this example so you can see clearly how it works. Your big picture story ties together your mission, impact, and values so that you signal to the right people that your work is for them. Or not, by the way. I know it's hard to hear sometimes, but your organization isn't for everyone. And that's why I keep referring to the right people. That's the right people for you. You may be thinking, what about everyone else? Am I excluding people by not using broader messaging that invites everyone in? And yes, it's true. You don't want to be so insider that even your people don't understand you. It's important to remember that if you're trying to speak to everyone, you're going to end up with a weaker message that connects to no one. If you run a dog rescue, don't focus on the cat people. They're not your people. Now, this is not to say that someone needs to personally experience the problem you solve to feel connected. But when you can answer, what do you do, in a way that clearly demonstrates not just your work, but your values and your impacts, you can connect on an emotional level with the right people, they will know that you're signaling to them that you're aligned. As Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this. People make decisions that align with the kinds of person they are or see themselves as being, and they do the types of things that person would do. If they see supporting your mission in line with their identity, they will want to get or stay involved. If they can't see your values in your messaging, they won't. To use our last example, people like us believe that all children deserve to reach their full potential for future success. People like us feel strongly about prioritizing this issue. People like us believe in the impact this organization has. People like us support organizations like this. This foundation is how you signal to your people in every interaction. It's also how you form the answer to the second question in clear messaging. What do you want to be known for? Sometimes our organizations do many things, but it's essential that there is one thing that you want to be known for, and your messaging reflect that one thing consistently throughout, especially in prominent places like your homepage. Because clarity creates connection, confusion creates distance. Sometimes we have a range of programs or services that are hard to capture succinctly. Answering what do you do can feel complicated. A big picture story is crucial for everyone, but if that describes you, then it's especially crucial for your nonprofit. If that's you, then I encourage you to zoom out and drill down from there. That preschool has many ways of teaching children with developmental challenges. They focus on academic, social, emotional, and behavioral growth and learning. They offer parent counseling and various therapies, but they are all rooted in their mission, which is where your big picture story begins. When you start from what all of your programs have in common, you can peel back the layers to get to the place of why your work really matters, so you can have your impact and values on full display. Leading with your values will keep you connected to your people, both those already in your orbit, and signal to new people that they're in the right place from the first second they encounter your messaging, like on your website. But what about when another organization also shares your mission and even your values? There are many that will. So how do you communicate in a way that stands out? Your messaging is not just what you say, it's how you say it. The voice, tone, and style you use is critical to keeping your people engaged with your stories and your message while signaling to new people as well. Your voice should be consistent for your organization. It's your personality. It's who you are when you show up for your audience. People give to people, so it's important to sound like an actual person, even when you're representing the organization as a whole. Just like your organization has values, your organization has personality. And again, this is how you form connection with the right people. So don't be afraid to use your voice on your website. It's how you'll make it clear who you are as an organization. Your tone is your approach or attitude in each communication, so it can vary depending on what you're writing and where you're writing it. But you always want to consider your voice when setting your tone. Think, is this something my organization would say like this? Your style is your visual identity. So yes, it's your logo, your fonts, your colors, but it's also in the words you use. Are there certain words that you always capitalize? Are there certain words you spell incorrectly on purpose, consistently? Is there slang or insider language that you use, or another language that you use that, again, signals to the right people that they're in the right place? All of this contributes to that signaling. So once you've hooked them with a clear message about what you do, this is how you draw them in closer and keep them connected. And that brings us to the next question of clear messaging. Who cares about what you do? You need to understand your ideal audience in order to attract them to your mission and to keep them engaged. You need to know who they are in order to connect with them. So yes, that's who they are demographically, their age, identifying gender, stage of life, where they live. But so much more importantly, you want to think about their psychographics. That's who they are as people. What do they believe in? What are their values and how do they align with yours? This graphic has been floating around the internet for a while. You may have seen it. It's not new. Note that it says Prince Charles. But it's such a good reminder of why we can't stop at demographics alone. On paper, Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne have a lot in common, but we can imagine that their identities and their values are quite different, and so the causes they would choose to align with are different as well. We need to think beyond demographics. What are our people's interests? What makes them feel good about giving to our mission? What are the problems they're looking to solve in the world? So, in considering these questions, there are a few quotes that can be attributed to truly everyone, but I believe that everyone has said this in one way or another at one time or another. And this is the golden rule of messaging and communication on your website and everywhere. Show me, you know me. People want to feel seen and heard. The more they feel you are connecting with them personally, the more engaged they'll be with your organization. Excuse me. And the more they'll want to invest in their relationship with your mission. It's not just about what you want to tell them, it's about your audience hearing what they feel speaks to them for who they are. Sorry. So this brings us to the final question in clear messaging. Why should they care about what you do? To answer that, you need to consider the following pieces of the puzzle: the problem you solve, how you solve it, the transformation to those you serve. I'm so sorry. And how your supporters can partner with you to make it happen. This including this clearly on your website, and again, really in all your communications, because clarity creates connection. Often, we jump to the solution without introducing the problem, especially on our homepages above the folds or close to the top. I guess I'm jumping to next month, but this is an issue that I've seen in that spot a lot. And I get the impulse to want to put that solution front and center. But without the problem, your people can't fully understand your big picture story because they can't appreciate your impact. So depending on your mission, the problem you solve may be easier or harder to understand. But in all instances, you need to consider that your visitors likely don't understand the problem like you do. So you need to set up your messaging with both the problem and solution in mind. You also need to demonstrate a transformation so that you're not just sharing your solution, but your impact. You're painting a clear picture of why it really matters. So here are two examples from organizations whose messaging I really admire. This copy was taken directly off each of their homepages. So the first one is an organization called I Would Rather Be Reading. And it says, read today, lead tomorrow. Reading as a vehicle to combat adverse childhood experiences. So the problem is that there are adverse childhood experiences. The solution is reading, and the transformation is lead tomorrow. Sorry. They could have just said that they offer literacy tutoring, after-school programs, and summer camps for local children, which they do further down the page. But to start, they outline the problem, solution, and transformation. So you're up to speed not only with what they do, but why it matters. The second example is from an organization called One Simple Wish, which says, grant a wish, change a life. We believe that everyone should experience love, hope, and joy. Join us in restoring hope and happiness to those who have been impacted by the trauma of foster care and childhood crisis. So the problem is the trauma, foster care, and childhood crisis. The solution is granting wishes that spread love, hope, and joy. The transformation is restoring hope and happiness. Again, here, you learn right away that there is trauma associated with foster care and that this organization believes that love, hope, and joy are universal. If your values align with theirs, you'll want to learn more about how to make this transformation happen and be part of the solution that they offer through their mission. To return to our mobilizing action puzzle, once you've outlined the problem, solution, and transformation, the last piece is the partnership. Once you've used clear messaging to create connection with your website visitors, you need to tell them how to channel that connection to take action. One call to action at a time is the most impactful. So think about what comes next, and it's not always going to be to donate. Do you want them to learn more about your mission, a particular program, volunteer opportunities? And sometimes, do you want them to donate? Keeping the user journey in mind with a clear call to action on every page of your website is one more way to show me you know me as you get the right people to take action. In presenting a clear problem, solution, transformation, and partnership, show me you know me is how you go from, oh, that's an interesting mission, to that's important work that speaks to me for who I am as a person, that solve problems that are important to me, and I want to get involved. One of the most powerful ways to make this connection come to life for the right people is through stories. So we already talked about using your big picture story to connect with the right people, and day-to-day stories throughout your website are how you connect with them to reinforce that message over and over. You can share them throughout your site in several formats, in quotes and videos. But first, what are day-to-day stories and what makes a good one? So they happen around us all the time. They are the ones we typically think of when we think about nonprofit storytelling. They don't have to be completely groundbreaking, though sometimes they will be, but they do have to support your big picture story and speak to that same emotional, values driven core. And they have to sound like you. That's how you drive that connection. They have to have the following elements: story of one, a story that demonstrates a problem, solution, and transformation, and an emotional connection. So let's go back to our original big picture story example of the preschool for kids with developmental differences and tell a day-to-day story. At graduation, Maddie was nervous that her anxiety would get in the way of making friends at her new school. But she said, "When I feel nervous, I know that what I learned here will help me feel better and make friends." So let's review the checklist. There's big picture story alignment. Maddie is reaching her potential and achieving future success, which every child deserves due to attending this program. There's a story of one, it's a story of transformation, and there's an emotional connection. That's how you demonstrate your impact through your stories and ultimately invite your people to partner with you to further whatever impact you have on the problem you solve. I also want to note this offhand comment Maddie made is the entire story. It's a true story that I heard firsthand, and at the time, the staff thought it was sweet, but didn't even think it was worth repeating to me. This is why it's important to have a clear sense of both big picture story and day-to-day stories internally. The story is not obviously groundbreaking, and yet it checks all the boxes. It's also short and shareable for something like your website. Maddie hadn't even made new friends yet, but the transformation here is believing that she could. Sometimes we get overwhelmed trying to come up with the perfect day-to-day stories where all the problems are solved and everything ends happily. But those stories are not only rare, they're actually not what you want. Thinking big is beautiful, but in this case, thinking small is important too. And here's why. Not everything always works out, or sometimes it's one step forward and two steps back. And if you wait for the perfect ending, no one will hear about all the steps of progress made in between. So when you can share those steps in between, you'll connect with your people on a deeper level when you can be more authentic and vulnerable in sharing your stories. You can't solve all of the problems all the time, and that's actually why you need their help. Also, when you share smaller transformations, you start to see just how many stories you have around you. Often taking that first step in the right direction is a day-to-day story worth sharing. Thinking smaller in terms of impact stories opens the door wide for the partnership piece of the puzzle. It creates space and clearly demonstrates the need for the right people to join you in solving the problem your mission addresses, and you need their help to make it happen. It also helps connect the dots on what the transformation really is through your work, so they understand your impact more directly and immediately. So here we are. We've answered our 4 questions of clear messaging. What do you do? What do you want to be known for? Who cares about it? And why should they care? And I know we just covered a lot, so I do want to distill it to this. When answering those 4 questions, keep these things in mind. Remember your big picture story, show me you know me, lead with your values, and drive that emotional connection. If you can keep these things in mind for your website, you'll achieve clear messaging that signals to the right people that they are in the right place and that they should spend more time on your site to learn more and take action. Because clarity creates connection. So that's it for the presentation piece. I have some free downloads on my website at voiceforgoodmarketing.com/freebies. This QR code is specifically to the big picture story freebie here that I mentioned, as that's the best place to get started. And I believe Nikki or David will also be dropping it in the chat. I'm also happy to connect on LinkedIn. I think my LinkedIn link was shared. I hope this has been helpful, and I'm happy to turn now to the Q&A.